Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Bailey. Bailey, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Bailey, excited to have you here. Excited for this conversation. This is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a good conversation. Bailey was actually a referral from a previous guest. And so it's always fun when we get to do that, when previous guests say, hey, you know what? I've got a rock star. From just my short conversation with Bailey, we're in for some good insights today. So I'm excited about it. Bailey, before we dive into the subject, let us get to know you a little bit. What do you love about content and marketing? What's a little bit of your background? We'd love to get to know you for a second.
Yeah, I'll tell you the quickest version of the story I can, but I think it's a story that is relatable to many because I think so many of us end up in the content field from somewhere else. So my background is in storytelling and creative writing, fiction writing. I went to school for that. And I was helping literary journals during the last recession. Literary journals have never had a lot of resources. And we were looking around thinking of ways to save money. Basically, literary journals have no money. So we were looking around and saying, well, the internet is this thing now. This was like over a decade ago. So the internet is a thing now. Maybe we could stand up a website, big question mark, because it's a room of academics and people who like writing in physical form and like books in physical form, thinking about a website. So I helped quite a few literary journals at the beginning set up their very first websites and think through problems and solutions such as, how do we put a poem online and preserve its formatting? How do we put an image online and preserve its quality? And I fell in love with content at that time because those challenges were really fun and felt a sense of accomplishment. And I was thinking there must be an equivalent of this somewhere out in the world of paying jobs. And so I found that there were lots of content jobs out there, and I got into content strategy. I convinced a bank to hire a fiction writer as their content strategist, and the rest is a little bit of history. I got into UX, I got into product, I got into marketing. And very recently, well, not very recently, I keep saying that. It's been about 3 years. I started Words First, which is my company, doing digital content strategy education so that other people can learn what I've learned over the past many years without all the trial and error that I needed to go through to get to this point.
I love it. I love it. One of the greatest things is to be able to learn from other people's experiences as opposed to having to suffer through it ourselves. So I think that's really cool. I also love how you're focused on the content, and you mentioned the UI, UX side of things, and that's really applicable to our conversation today. Really, we're going to focus on function over form when it comes to your content. Now, Bailey, when we say that phrase, what does that mean to you, just to give us some context and start off the conversation?
Yes. So many times we come into content projects with an idea of what the thing, the experience, the product, the message should be. And very often it's formed in our own brains. And very often we have kind of even a vision of the visuals of it, what it will look like in actuality. And what I encourage everyone to do is to go back to the beginning and say, one, why are we creating this for the people we're creating it for? Because it's almost never for us. Even internal products are not really for the team creating them. So to go back to the beginning and say, why are we creating this? And then to understand the people on the other side of the screen, what will they do with it? And those listening will have heard some of this before. But the thing then at that point is to say, how do our words impact this experience? Because people come online for your content. You want everything to look aesthetically beautiful. You want it to look polished and professional. But people are coming to your experience or your message or when they receive it for the content and specifically the words, which are the thing that always get left in the dust. We cram them in at the end. We cram them in after the form has already taken place. but they are very function driving. They're very functional, words are, which is not the way we typically think about them.
I love that. So when you're looking at content, it sounds like the first and foremost, you have this kind of process and this really this hierarchy of needs, really, when you're focusing on the content to say, who's the audience? What do they need? And then you write the content. Is that right? And then you focus on design after the fact? Or when is the right time to build design into the process, in your opinion?
Right. That's a really good question because design is so important too. So not to say that input should come much later either. It really should be kind of more of this beautiful dance between content and design and even functionality. Even your developer friends should be involved if the functionality has questions inside of your message, your experience. So the way I usually go about it is to understand, first of all, what content do we have? Because I think a lot of times we start projects dreaming of net new content, but we all know that content creation is time consuming and you're sitting on whoever we are sitting on a wealth of content right now. Just even through some of the quote unquote boring documents you might have in your business, there's content available inside there. So what do we have that can be content that can help shape this, that we already know that our customers have resonated with, for example? And then the content and the word work for me starts as soon as sketches, mock-ups, wireframes, if you do those. Usually design starts those deliverables off. But instead to have content say, here are the pages, for example, on, say, a website. Here are the pages that we'll have, and here's the content that goes on each page in order, and some of the messaging we're thinking about using. Or to say, for something that's more of a campaign, say an email campaign, here are the emails that we want to send out for the next quarter or for this campaign, and to do the same thing there. Here is the content for each one of these in order, the actions, down to the headings, down to even, I call it content layout. But to say we have 3 things to say here, so don't give us 4 buckets, right?
Yeah.
We have a very short paragraph, so don't give us a longer paragraph. And the designers I've talked to have said that really helps to shape their work because now they know what they're supposed to design around.
I love that. And it sounds like you're really focusing with a goal in mind to say, okay, we want to accomplish this. This is what they need to know. This is what they need to do. And then you can hand that off to the design and developers to say, everything needs to focus on this specific outcome. You know, instead of it just looking beautiful, the beauty needs to have a functionality side of things. So when you're looking at it, you mentioned website content as well. And I'm always curious about this. Function over form, website content. How does that play a role with like algorithms and SEO and things like that? How are you weighing the function of what the customer needs versus the function of what the search algorithm or the social media channel? I'm a believer that social media is just another form of a search engine, but how do you weigh the algorithm with the consumer and then the design and all that kind of stuff as well?
Right. That's a great question too, because also the function that the business needs the content to perform. So you have to do this balancing between your customer, the business, and I call them the robots. I lovingly call them the robots. So all robots are robots. So for me, that comes back to the words as well, because the words are the foundation of how we communicate. It's the foundation of much of the foundation of what the robots are looking at too. And if you are using natural language to your audience, depending on your audience, natural language is going to sound different. And you may have an assumption of what their natural language is. And then if you do a little bit of research or talk to them, engage with them, which I highly recommend, talking to them individually and specifically, you'll find that they might call it something totally different from what you thought. So in most cases, I'm a real advocate for finding out what your audience calls it. What are they typing into the search bar? And aligning your own language with what they call it in their heads. Because not only should it show up via SEO, not only should it make sense to them when they arrive, say, at your website, and they say, yeah, that was what I was looking for. Not only will it help them click the next thing because they recognize the word to click on, but then it should come back, all of that should come back and support your business goals.
I love it. I'm going to throw in a third F and see how this weighs out in your mind. So I apologize for the curveball. I always like to throw curveballs. Lots of fun. So you have function and form. What I'm going to focus on and ask you is about format. So sometimes different audiences like to consume content in different formats. How do you weigh format? And is it more in the form or function bucket? How do you look at it when you're reformatting or repurposing? What are your thoughts on that in general to find the proper format, at least the medium that people want to consume content from?
Yes. And I would encourage, when you are talking to people, your audience, to discover how they most often consume their media, especially depending on what their role is, their job is, their environment. You might be very surprised at how they are consuming media. But as a general answer, we could have a whole other conversation about this, but digital accessibility is something that really opened my eyes to the importance of universal design inside of content, inside of the information we display. And so, for example, the way it opened my eyes is we can display the same information in multiple formats in the same view. So, for example, you have a video. Not everyone is going to watch that video. Not everyone can watch that video. Not everyone has the time. Not everyone is going to want to consume it that way, and so they will not. But what you can do is pull out the bullet points or the quote, give them the meat of what the video is, the purpose of it, and why they should care really quickly in words alongside that video, so that they can consume it either way that they see fit. And that's just one example of providing multiple different ways for people to engage with content in the same space. I've seen a lot of people doing this on social recently too, where there might be a reel that is a video or a series of images, but the caption actually gives the same information again in another way, in an interesting way, instead of just regurgitating it. But they're actually giving the information in another way for you to engage with. And you might even, if you engage with both, get some more texture and depth out of it.
I like that a lot. I like the idea of when you reformat, it's not repetition necessarily. It's, you have to take in that medium into account and say, well, honestly, the podcast, just the transcript may not be the most value driving, reformatting of a podcast episode and into text. And maybe there's just 3 bullet points that would make a lot of sense to really highlight and focus on. And then if they want to listen, eventually they can, or something like that. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. It depends on where they are in their journey with you, right? This is all a journey. So you're right. They might come back and listen, or they might say, that's enough, I'm ready to buy, or, giving them those options.
I love it. So when you're looking at all of this stuff, and again, these podcast episodes go by really quick. So we've got one last question on all of this. I'm going to throw in an R word. I couldn't figure out how to change this into an F word to fit the function format and form and all that stuff. Repurposing content. How are you looking at that from a function and form standpoint? Is it all about the form? Is it about the function? How do you do that in a way that actually provides value instead of just regurgitation?
Yeah. So I very often, when I'm working with clients or when I'm teaching people to do this for themselves, I'll very often ask them to pull everything that could possibly be about the subject that either the message or the campaign or the website or the product or the experience is about. Pull me your marketing brochures. Pull me that those sales logs. Pull me customer service and experience surveys. Pull me all of those things, or pull them for yourself. And start to comb through and see what nuggets you have that will do 2 things. Contribute to the business goals, like the why of the thing you're creating or the message you're going to communicate, and also have resonated. You either know it's resonated in the past because it's a marketing material that did very well, or you have right on the sales call somebody telling you why they bought, like why they're ready to buy, and or pull some things to try out, to test. Because one beautiful thing about starting with the words is that they're not set in stone the way the design is. So if you start with the words, you show people, say, a kind of quote unquote content layout. We're going to have this heading. We're going to have this description. We're going to have these 3 points. You can even take that into a testing environment with people and say, how are you responding to this? How do you react to this? What's here? How are you interpreting what's on the screen? So when you are taking all of that information, balancing it with your business goals, the needs and motivations of your audience, and if you don't know what those are, it doesn't require a big budget or a lot of resources to find out quickly if what you've pulled is resonating with them, or if you need to try again. So for me, it always goes back to starting with the words that are easy to change if you do them first, and the people that they're meant to serve, and whether it's speaking to them in a way that they relate to and that motivates them.
I love that. I love that. It almost sounds like, there's different angles you can take, different elements that you can include that really could resonate with different people and help expand on the subject rather than just repeating yourself, which sounds really, really cool.
Yeah.
Bailey, thank you. This has been amazing. I have enjoyed this conversation. It could go on for days, but again, to keep these episodes easy for busy content marketers and marketing executives to listen to, we've got to cut it off somewhere, unfortunately. But Bailey, if anyone wants to continue the conversation online, how and where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and I try to post there consistently. So hopefully that it will be a value add if you want to connect with me there. And also my website is wordsfirstcontent.com if you want to take a little bit more of a look into what it means to have a words first approach to digital content.
Love it. Love it. Well, again, Bailey, thanks again for the time today.
Thank you. It's fun.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.